As a physician who's walked alongside thousands of older patients, I've come to realize there's one critical topic often ignored: sexual health in later life. Many stop touching their bodies thinking that part of life is over. But medical truth says otherwise. When you disconnect from your body, your health quietly begins to decline both physically and emotionally. Don't let your prostate suffer in silence. Let me be direct, because too many older adults deserve to hear this before it's too late. If you've stopped masturbating in your later years, your prostate may already be crying out for help, and you might not even notice. Many of my patients, strong men, former engineers, teachers, veterans, have come to me with the same quiet complaint, waking up 4 to 5 times a night to urinate weak urine stream, a constant pressure in the lower abdomen. And almost all of them shrug it off as just getting older. But this isn't just aging, it's what happens when the prostate is neglected. Your prostate is not some passive gland, it's active, it produces fluid, it expands and contracts. And like any other living system, it suffers when ignored. Without regular stimulation and release, prostate fluid can stagnate, creating the perfect storm for inflammation, swelling, and eventually benign prostatic hyperplasia (BPH), a condition that can disrupt your life, lead to catheter use, or even require surgery. One of my patients, Robert, age 70, told me he had put that part of life behind him. He stopped all sexual activity, including masturbation. The result, he began waking 5 times a night, couldn't sleep, felt exhausted, and stopped going out because of bladder urgency. Eventually, he needed medical intervention to relieve serious urinary retention, something that could have been prevented by simply maintaining regular ejaculation. Studies show that men who ejaculate 21 times or more a month have a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer. And no, this doesn't mean you need to be 20 again or chase youthful fantasies. This isn't about desire. It's about biological maintenance, keeping your body functioning the way it was designed to. What breaks my heart is how many people only start paying attention once it's too late. I've cared for patients who refuse to leave home for fear of accidents, who wear pads in secret, who dread long car rides. All of this often preventable with one small act of self-care. Let me be crystal clear, this isn't a conversation about lust. It's a message about survival, about protecting your freedom, your confidence, and your ability to live on your own terms, starting with something as simple as staying physically connected to yourself. When your mind starts to go quiet. One of the most haunting conversations I've had was with a 68-year-old man who had been a lifelong accountant. He sat in front of me, visibly confused and defeated, and said, "Doc, I walk into a room and forget why I'm there. I'll start a sentence and then forget what I was saying. Is my brain breaking down?" I looked him in the eye and gently said, "No, you're not broken. But something your body needs may be missing." We often think of masturbation as a simple act tied to pleasure. But from a physiological standpoint, it's one of the most powerful tools for brain support. During orgasm, your brain releases a cascade of neurochemicals: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, the golden trio responsible for memory focus, stress reduction, and emotional regulation. What seems like a small act actually fuels your nervous system, like recharging the brain's batteries. But when older adults stop all physical intimacy, even solo, the frequency of these natural chemical boosts disappears. Slowly, they begin to feel foggy, sluggish, disoriented, without knowing why. They blame age or declining memory. But the truth is, their brain is starving for stimulation, the kind they used to provide without even thinking. There's also the issue of declining testosterone, a hormone not only essential for libido, but for clarity, decisiveness, and mental vitality. One patient, a retired physics teacher, lost his wife and eventually stopped all forms of intimacy, including self-touch. Within a year, his sharpness dulled, his speech slowed, and he forgot formulas he'd taught for decades. Here's what we need to understand. Masturbation isn't just for the young. It's a quiet, effective way to keep the aging brain alive. It reminds you that you still feel, still matter, still belong in your own skin. And that reminder helps keep your brain alert and engaged. So, if your thoughts have felt cloudy, if your memory isn't what it used to be, don't immediately chalk it up to just getting old. Ask yourself this instead. When was the last time I truly connected with my own body? When was the last time I gave my brain the surge of energy and chemistry it used to thrive on? You might be surprised by what comes back when you do. Emotions don't die. They get silenced. There's something most doctors never say to their older patients. Losing desire doesn't mean you've lost emotion. Many men past the age of 65 have sat in my office and told me they no longer feel sad, no longer feel joy, just empty. What they don't realize is that what they're missing isn't just a physical habit. It's an emotional survival mechanism that's gone dormant. You see, during climax, your brain releases oxytocin and endorphins, nature's emotional shield. These chemicals combat anxiety, lift your mood, and restore emotional balance. But when your body is no longer being touched, no longer releasing tension, those healing chemicals disappear. Your emotional system doesn't collapse overnight, it just slowly freezes. Not sadness, not happiness, just numbness, a quiet, creeping emotional paralysis. I once treated a widower who had loved music and photography. After his wife passed, he gradually gave up all his passions. 8 months later, during a follow-up, he told me, "I don't feel sad, but I don't know what joy feels like anymore." That's not aging. That's a nervous system starved of chemistry connection, and even a simple sense of aliveness. What's worse, many people feel ashamed for even considering self-touch in older age. They think it's inappropriate or irrelevant. But let me say this clearly, emotions don't retire. Your body, even at 70 or 80, still deserves to be treated as something alive, not a vessel you've stopped caring for. A neglected body begins to fade, and so does the person inside it. One man confessed to me, "I haven't touched myself in 6 years since my wife died. And the longer I stayed disconnected, the more I felt like a shadow in my own home." That statement stayed with me. Because emotional isolation doesn't always begin with sadness. Sometimes it begins with losing physical connection to yourself. If you felt yourself slowly fading, don't blame aging. Come back to yourself, not for lust, but for emotional preservation. Sometimes to remember you're still alive, all it takes is a simple gesture, a gentle, intentional moment with your own body. And that's not shameful. That's healing. Sleep, the healing power you may have forgotten. A 67-year-old patient once told me during a routine visit, "Doc, I fall asleep at 10, but by 2 a.m. I'm wide awake, like something launched me out of bed. Then I just lie there staring at the ceiling until morning." Sleep disruption is common in older adults, but what concerns me more is why it happens. And often the answer isn't found in sleep meds or brain scans. It's something more personal. The body no longer finds its natural release. Sleep isn't just about closing your eyes. It's a complex biological event that depends on hormones, rhythms, and chemical signals. And one of the most powerful tools the body used to rely on to enter that deep, restful state was sexual pleasure. Orgasm triggers a chemical cocktail, oxytocin, prolactin, endorphins, that shifts the nervous system from stress to rest. When someone completely stops sexual activity, including masturbation, they also shut the door on one of the body's most natural sleep inducers. They may go to bed on time, but wake up at 2 a.m., tossing and turning, or rise in the morning feeling groggy as if they never really slept at all. I once worked with a retired mechanic who had been living alone for years. He was battling insomnia so severe he relied on sleeping pills nightly. When I gently asked about his intimacy habits, he admitted, "I put that part of me to rest a long time ago." Together, we began a slow process of physical reconnection. Just a few weeks later, he returned to my office, eyes brighter, posture straighter. "Doc, I'm sleeping like I did in my 40s. It may seem small, but masturbation, when healthy and appropriate, can be a prescription-free therapy for restoring sleep. Instead of turning to pills or guided breathing apps, sometimes what the body needs is a simple reminder that it's still here, still capable of softening, of letting go." Deep sleep doesn't just help you feel refreshed. It helps repair cells, boost immunity, improve memory, and even lower fall risk. which is crucial in older adults. So, if you've tried everything and still can't sleep, ask yourself this simple question: has my body truly relaxed lately? Because sometimes rest begins with a reconnection. When weakness begins where you least expect it. I once treated a retired firefighter, a man of strength, grit, and decades of service. At 73, he came into my clinic. Frustrated, "Doc, I can't stand for long anymore. My lower back aches, and I leak urine when I cough." He thought it was just old age catching up. But after a full exam, I found something else. His pelvic floor had nearly gone dormant. The pelvic floor, a group of muscles at the base of your core, is the foundation that supports your bladder, bowels, and sexual organs. When we're young, these muscles work constantly holding in urine-stabilizing movement even during sex. But as we age, and especially when physical intimacy fades, the pelvic floor quietly weakens. One of the most natural ways to keep these muscles strong is through sexual stimulation, especially orgasm. During climax, the pelvic floor contracts rhythmically. It's like a built-in workout, boosting blood flow to the lower body, keeping tissues elastic, and ensuring nerves stay responsive. When sexual activity stops, so does this workout. Blood flow decreases, muscles weaken, nerves become less responsive. Slowly, symptoms creep in: urine leakage difficulty, holding gas discomfort, while walking, even pain during everyday movements. Over time, many older adults begin to lose trust in their own bodies. One woman in her early 70s confided in me, "I wear a pad every time I go to the grocery store, not because I want to, but because I no longer trust my body." That wasn't just sad, it was a wake-up call. Because neglecting your pelvic floor means surrendering dignity. And I want you to understand this: masturbation, even if it sounds awkward to some, is one of the simplest medical tools we have to reawaken these forgotten systems. You don't need a partner. You just need you and the willingness to reconnect. Think of it as an exercise, a quiet form of physical therapy starting from a place most people never talk about. But when done regularly, it doesn't just strengthen your body. It restores your confidence, your presence, and yes, your power. Because strength doesn't always begin in the gym. Sometimes it starts where you least expect it, within your own touch. Immunity declines when you disconnect from yourself. A few winters ago, I treated a 68-year-old man, a retired electrician, who had always been healthy and active. But in just one short season, he'd caught colds 3 separate times. I used to shake off a cold in 2 days. Now it lingers for a week or more, he said. We ran labs. His nutrition, sleep, and vitals looked fine. Then I gently asked him, "Have you stayed physically connected to yourself intimately?" He looked down and smiled awkwardly. "No. I think that part of me retired." We often forget that the body doesn't just run on food and sleep, it thrives on subtle signals of life, and pleasure is one of them. When you masturbate and reach orgasm, your body produces not only dopamine and oxytocin, it also boosts immunoglobulin, IgA, a key antibody that protects your respiratory, digestive, and immune systems. At the same time, your body releases endorphins, natural painkillers, and anti-inflammatory agents. This chemical response becomes a silent shield, helping you resist infections and recover more quickly. But when intimacy disappears, especially with yourself, that shield weakens. The scary part: immune decline doesn't shout, it whispers. You begin catching more minor illnesses. Your body takes longer to heal. You feel more run down from small things. And no one ever suspects that it might come from neglecting physical self-connection. I once spoke with a woman in her early 70s. She'd lost her husband 5 years prior and hadn't been sexually active since, not even with herself. After our open, respectful conversation, she tried gently reconnecting, not for desire, but to feel alive again. 3 months later, she returned and told me, "I can't explain it, but I feel better. I haven't been sick, and I'm sleeping deeper. It's like my body is cooperating again." I wasn't surprised. That's what happens when the body gets the message that it still matters. Your immune system doesn't care how old you are. It only needs to know that you're alive, that you're engaged, that you're sending signals of vitality. And sometimes, one simple act like masturbation sends a powerful message: I'm still here. I'm still worth caring for. It's not magic. It's biology, and you deserve to use it. Disconnecting from your body. The silent fading of self. One afternoon, a 77-year-old retired high school principal sat across from me in my office. He wasn't there for a major medical issue. He just looked tired and said, "Doc, I don't feel like I live in this body anymore. It's like I'm just renting it." His words stopped me for a moment, because I've heard similar confessions from so many older adults, both men and women. When you stop touching your body, you don't just lose physical contact. You slowly begin to lose a sense of ownership over yourself. It's a gentle fading, a quiet erosion of identity. From a medical perspective, masturbation is not just a sexual act. It's a ritual of self-recognition. When you touch yourself, not out of urgency or lust, but simply to be present, you send a powerful signal to your nervous system: I'm still here. I still feel. I still matter. When that connection is lost, other things begin to slip too. You stop caring how you look. You ignore little aches. You neglect sleep, nutrition, even hobbies you once loved. You avoid mirrors because the person looking back no longer feels like you. I remember a woman in her early 70s, a former art teacher, once told me I stopped touching myself after menopause. And the longer I stayed disconnected, the less I felt like a woman. Eventually, I didn't feel like anyone. That sentence, "I didn't feel like anyone," is the quiet cry of thousands of aging adults who have forgotten how to inhabit their own body. Reconnecting doesn't have to start with anything dramatic. Sometimes it begins with something as small as placing your hand over your chest, taking a deep breath, and remembering that you are still alive, still worthy, and still capable of feeling. This isn't a conversation about sex. It's a conversation about identity. And sometimes, to find yourself again, you only need to do one quiet, powerful thing: touch yourself like you still matter. Reclaiming your body. A journey you deserve to begin. After over 17 years of working with aging patients, I've come to see that what hurts most isn't disease, it's the feeling of losing oneself. Patients stop looking in mirrors, stop listening to their bodies, and stop believing their sexuality holds any value past 60 or 70. But the truth is, you are still here. Your body still matters. It still deserves care, connection, and dignity. Every part of your being, your brain, prostate, sleep, immune system, pelvic floor, is affected when you disconnect physically. This isn't just about pleasure. It's about health. It's about living with purpose and respect. You don't need anyone else to start again. Just you and a little courage to say, "I deserve to feel like myself again." Whether it's a gentle touch, a moment of quiet attention, or simply allowing yourself to relax, these are all acts of healing. So, if you felt like you're fading, remember you haven't disappeared. You just need to take one small step back toward your own body.